What's going on, Drama Alert Slop Nation? Welcome back to a bit more of Japan. Konnichiwa! Yeah, Paradox is once again back with their new developer diaries. I actually have a couple to look at because I wasn't around for a bit. So we have the Historical Japan Diary and also the Alt History Path. So I'm going to have a quick glimpse at the historical ones, and we want to go look at the Alt History ones. I think there's a few interesting things in there. Okay, so starting off in this dev diary, we have ourselves the historical recap, giving us a quick, brief overview of Japan's situation at the start of the game, what's happened quite recently, and what has put them in a situation where they're in need of resources. Yeah, I don't think there's anything too important for us to actually read there. I mean, they literally say right there, okay, that's a lot of lore dumping. You're right, Paradox, that is a bit too much lore dumping. You think an average Paradox player is going to read this much? Yeah, you want to read? Go play TNO. But TLDR, political instability, warring factions in the bureaucracy and the government, and a whole bunch of need for resources. One thing that is now important though is Japan starts non-aligned. And also look at that new create faction button right there. I know it's not really that important, but ain't that cool? It's different. It's weird actually, I don't like it. No, I actually do like it, because obviously we have ourselves a brand new faction rework coming with this update. So I think actually creating a faction will be something that you have to create here and not just clicking on another nation. Okay, let's get our reading glasses on here. The reason why Japan starts out non-aligned now is because they were actually a democratic nation with free elections in early 1936, but they were rapidly pulled towards authoritarianism in the starting months and coming years. We considered having them start out as democratic and then switch to non-aligned and then end up as fascist as you progress through the focus tree, but there wasn't much to be gained game mechanically by doing this. Therefore, they will adopt fascism as their national ideology with the formation of a true one-party state in the early 40s. Now let's move on to the new shiny national spirits. I do love here how Paradox actually being like, you know, we could have actually had this be somewhat historically accurate, but we thought, nah, what's the point? And quite literally, what is the point of switching them from non-aligned to democratic to eventually ending up as fascists? Now we also get ourselves a look at our Imperial Army spirit over here, and as you can see, we do get a few little debuffs on top of this. I'm assuming that's down to the not so much cohesion that was the government and the army at this point. You know, they were kind of doing their own thing, starting wars here and there, and specifically not listening. I'm sure they'll probably cover it down here. I haven't actually read this all the way through, so there is plenty to unpack here. As you might have noticed, the Imperial Army looks a bit different from the other national spirits, as it's kind of split in two parts. The Japanese armor doctrine at the top and the rest of the modifiers below. This kind of thing has been made possible with last year's DLC, Got a Damn Wrong. And we're using it here to differentiate between armor-related modifiers from the rest of the army modifiers. The reason being that Japanese tanks had started to lag behind Western ones in terms of armor firepower and technology. Looking beyond that, Japan's overall tactics, they relied heavily on surprise attacks, on hitting hard and hitting fast. And they found it very disgraceful to ever retreat. Can we get the Shogun 2 dishonorable sound bite right there for me?
A shameful display!
There you go. Perfect. But perhaps their biggest weakness was logistics, both on land and sea. All of these factors contributed to why Japan eventually got stuck deep in China and couldn't push further inland. Now, I haven't looked too deeply into how Paradox is actually going to go ahead and deal with the logistics of obviously beating China, because for the most part in Hoi 4, you're always going to end up actually destroying China in the historical sense, so that just never happened. It wasn't even close to happening, and when it was kind of in sight, that's when things started to go really bad. But realistically, I think most players are probably going to end up just always capitulating China, but it does seem like they are actually trying to, you know, actually balance it, so maybe you won't just be annexing China immediately. I'm not too sure. It would be nice for them to actually kind of have a historical president, but I think most players probably don't want to just get stuck in China the entire game. Now, we won't read too much for the rest of these focus spirits, just because it's a lot of information that I don't think is too interesting. Obviously, we have our Navy and our Air Force one right here. You can see there's a lot more red than there is green for the most of these, and I'm assuming they get better with progressing crossing into the game. Well, you know, I tell you what, though, that early industrialization effort that you get there, this is your industry spirit, that hurts. Like, consumer goods factor straight away, 30% for Japan is painful. You don't have a lot of factories as Japan's starting off, unless they've changed something with Japan's starting situation, but that's a lot. In fact, let's just have a quick little read here. Japan had industrialized and had never before seen pace in the late 1900s, frantically trying to catch up with the West, and while they achieved something truly impressive with their rapid industrialization, they never really got on the same level as other major powers. The biggest issue facing Japan industries was the lack of natural resources within the home islands, and the reason why the military wanted to expand and acquire these through aggressive means. Now, what's also going to be interesting about this is, of course, we have the new resource in the game, coal, that will actually have to power your civilian factories. So, you know, is Japan really going to be crippled at the start? It kind of seems like it will, or at least, you know, it has to rely on, it says here, rapid military expansion. And I think that is probably going to be the case here. Now we're going to keep going down here. We actually have the new balance of power in Japan. I like how this has now been centered, finally. So, you know, it isn't just off to one tab side. And let ourselves a little read here. If you work with the various factions within the Imperial influence, you can be of great assistance to you and your ambitions, but you will have to pick and choose from which ones you support and when. There are 4 levels of influence. A faction can be subdued, being the lowest, and then rising to meddling, influential, and then dominating. Now, all of this we kind of covered already in the other video, and this honestly is exactly kind of what I wanted, where you do actually have to pick and put, you know, choose what you want to do and what's probably best at the time, and you can kind of look at the buffs that you'll be getting. That actually, some of them aren't that insane, I'll be real with you. I think some of them, obviously, you're gonna definitely want to go for. Like, look at that, Civ build speed, 20% infrastructure build speed. That's a lot more useful than production cost modifier, 7.5% for infantry and support equipment, in my opinion. And we also have, like, the Civic faction over here, giving political power gain stability, trade law costs, that doesn't matter too much, but they obviously come with the brutal effects of recruitable population factor and war support there. You know, you're gonna have to actually pick and choose, like it says, where need be. It does kind of cover the inter-service rivalry here as well. If you don't know, Japan, the army and the navy constantly, you know, trying to fight for as much power to each of their own factions the entire time, even going against each other a couple circumstances. So due to the inter-service rivalry, the army and naval factions are the only ones that directly affect each other. As long as they are on the same level, they will suffer slight production cost malices, while if one of them rises above the other one, the more influential one will gain bonuses towards its production costs. AKA, at some points, you're probably going to want the army to be more important than the navy, because then you'll get a production cost modifier bonus. But if they're at the same level, you won't. If one's lower than the other, then they'll get less. It's pretty simple. This means you can start out supporting the army by building lots of infantry and artillery equipment before and during its invasion of China, before pivoting to support the navy and building up a strong fleet to face off against the allies. So yeah, you're going to have to pick and choose, and, you know, when the moment's right, move between who you're supporting at what time. Now, I don't know if this carries on into other alt history paths. We'll have a look in a second. What's kind of interesting here is that the influence level can also boost the rewards you get from some focuses. So if you have a more powerful army faction at the time you're doing a focus, you'll get yourself more of a reward, or potentially less of a reward. I don't know if it actually says that. So how do you go about increasing and decreasing, for that matter, the level of faction? This can be done by completing focuses, or by simply spending some political power and either endorse or suppress a faction within the Imperial influence inlay window. So as you can see right here, you have either endorse the army faction, or you can suppress them. I'm assuming it will cost a little bit of political power if you're, you know, you want to get them down real quick. It says 100 political power right there. That's not too bad, especially, I guess, late game. You've probably got a lot of it hanging about. I guess it does kind of come off probably a bit annoying sounding that you're going to have to constantly deal with all this stuff, but I don't think it's as bad as it really might sound right now, especially because when you have multiple ways to actually lower and also, you know, raise support for a faction at multiple different times. I think it'll be okay. Oh no, I don't like this part though. If a faction becomes influential enough, they'll start to send demands. If you complete these demands, they will gain additional influence, but if you fail, they will lose it instead. If you've played historical Italy, you should be filling with the Michelinis. No! Oh, every Italian gay Mussolini barging into the rooms like, I demand 15,000 planes now! Mussolini, please. It's 1936. We don't have the capacity. No! Oh my god. Okay, well, where Mussolini will want to do something, you have a pretty good idea what the faction demands are all about. I mean, I hope it ain't as annoying as the Michelinis. Okay, now we can actually look at our focuses here. I don't think I'm going to cover too much of the industry there. I do actually just want to look a little, because I do really want to go look at the alt history path, and I think a lot of people have probably read this already, but I'll go through the main ones here that it actually shows, and then we'll go look at that. So much like German autarky, Japan now has resource security, where you actually just have to get yourself a whole bunch of resources, which in my opinion are all in pretty easily grabbable places. I mean, you get a lot of this stuff just from invading both China and obviously the southern resource area, and that does look like that gets rid of your malices for your industry. So you get rid of early industrialization efforts, and you get the economic miracle, which gives yourselves a lot of buffs right there. And again, I don't think it's going to be too hard to get, especially considering German autarky. The only one that I can't really think of is where'd you get the chromium from in Asia, unless they've added some. I'm sure there's probably some chromium somewhere. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. I do know everything else, including the coal there. That is the new resource right there. I'm assuming will be in easily accessible regions, but yeah, I just can't think of where the hell you get that chromium. You do need not quite as much as the rest of them, so there can't be too much of it about. Okay, I'm just scrolling through looking for anything interesting here, and I'm looking at the Navy tree here, and we've got heat-seeking missiles and FGO nuclear project. What are those? Somebody tell me, right? Get me the Mark Felton video up and explaining the heat-seeking Japanese missiles. Interesting here as well, you do get to pick between battleships, a balanced naval approach, or aircraft carriers. I'm assuming historically, Japan did kind of go that balanced naval approach. You had a whole bunch of carriers and also, you know, a couple real big battleships. But you can see the bonuses that you get right here. And obviously, unless they change something pretty heavily, battleships are always damn useless in Hoi 4. But yeah, obviously we'll see. I think they were doing a bit of a naval rework I think they mentioned they were doing a naval rework, weren't they? So maybe potentially battleships might have more of a purpose, but I think I don't even do aircraft carriers either. The only thing I build is literally cruisers and destroyers and submarines. So yeah, I don't think this is going to matter too much for most people, unless you really enjoy your Navy, LARPing and wasting your own time. Okay, now here we have our historical path. Got a lot in there. Looks like we got a whole bunch of stuff to do, and just scrolling through already, there was something interesting that I saw, which essentially, after you go ahead and deal with your political turmoil in Japan, you actually get a little choice over here between moving to authoritarianism, but then past then, you get yourself a choice of faction members here. So Japan has its first choice of factions, which can later down the line be reformed into the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, and I think one of them is actually allying with the Chinese. So obviously, I think the new order in East Asia is just doing the, obviously going towards your normal Japanese historical branch, but you also get the choice of working with Chiang Kai-shek. I don't know where that's going to end up later down the road, if you can still get a whole bunch of land off them, or if they end up being, you know, a puppet government or anything like that, or they just become one hell of a powerful ally. But we see right here, with Chiang Kai-shek's government having accepted our demands for cracking down on communist and anti-Japanese activity, it is now seems probable that they will be willing to totally form an alliance with us, deal with the festering sore deep down in the bottom of Eastern Asia known as warlordism and communism. It does have itself its own little thing right here, which is the Sino-Japanese Pact of Mutual Cooperation. The Sino-Japanese Mutual Pact of Cooperation is removed when the Japanese Sino-Communist Pact is dismantled for 730 days. So I'm not too sure exactly what that means. Maybe it's kind of like the German-Soviet alliance, where that just breaks down after a period of time. And then if you remember in the last video, we covered the premiership thing. It was 3 blurred out focuses. Well, this is what that is down. Oh, there you go. You see it right there. And this is actually in the bottom part of the tree comes the main and final choice for which person to lead Japan during the later stages of its war effort. So yeah, essentially this is who will be the military dictator for the most part. Let's just put it that way. You get yourself Tojo Yamamoto, and the Chrysanthemum Throne, which is actually just keeping Hirohito and putting him in charge. I mean, Chrysanthemum Throne seems kind of interesting, I get. Yamamoto seems like a bit of a weird one, and Tojo is obviously going to be the historical path here, and what exactly they lead on down to is still, for the most part, going to be, I guess, kind of in who they are already. If you think about it, it's either army, navy, or monarchy. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been critiquing a few of the things in the Japanese tree for good measure already from Paradox, and a lot of that actually comes with the alt history stuff as well. But I know this got a whole bunch of criticism, specifically, who you get to pick here, but it's kind of, whatever for the most part. It's Hoi 4. I ain't expecting the most historically accurate stuff, or even close to it for that matter. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think the Japanese tree, it looks okay. It looks like it'll be a whole bunch of fun for the most part, and I am definitely looking forward to getting my hands on it and having my fun, see if it plays okay. But let's go ahead, let's go check out the all history path. Sorry I just kind of went through all this very quickly, but it's been out since the 7th of October, and yeah, I'm a little bit behind here. But now we have the alt history paths for Japan, and obviously we've got ourselves a whole bunch of them. So I think I'll give a quick brief breakdown of what we have. So we have the Kadoa faction, which is essentially in the historical paths that we currently have. It's the one where you end up fighting the Soviets, you put the emperor fully in charge, pure monarchy. Then of course we've got our democratic path, which I think might be more fitting now that obviously Japan starts off non-aligned, and you obviously have a chance to fight authoritarianism in Japan. But if you can't tell from all the events though, it looks like it might not be the most stable transition to democracy. I also love, even though it is a democratic path, no matter what for Japan, you're always just gonna end up fighting China, because there you go. And oh boy, we've got everyone's least favorite alt history path, the unthinkable option, which is obviously communism. And just having a quick brief look at it already looks absolutely chunky compared to what we currently have in the game. There is a whole bunch in here for you to potentially do. I'm not too sure how exactly it's going to play. I think I saw something in the video where it does just kind of end up being you just annexing all of Asia. One focus I did find kind of interesting is the Pacific Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, where you actually integrate Asian states and get yourself cores, I'm assuming, on them. Obviously, Paradox making communist paths have always been a bit hit or miss. Usually, they don't really have too much direction, because obviously with communism, you ain't exactly doing too much of what I would consider to be the fun stuff in Hoi 4, which is obviously painting the map. So at that point, you're not really playing a communist path, you're just a fascist path, and you've just got a different flag. It don't play too well in Hoi 4 for the most part. It does look like they are giving you a whole bunch of options how you actually want to go ahead and make this communist state turn out, and kind of creating a rival to the USSR as well in Asia. Could be interesting, I like the idea of that at least. And then just at the bottom here, it's got a few final teasers of advisors that you can get. I like a few of them, specifically this guy over here, Yukio Ozaki, who is the god of constitutional politics, and this guy, Mr. Mitsura, who's the Shadow Shogun. But anyway, I wanted to have a quick actual look at a few of these paths a bit more in depthly. I want to go straight away with the Imperial Way, which I'm assuming is going to be the most popular history path for Japan because it's a monarchy, and that's just how it goes in Hoi 4. What's actually interesting is the path actually has the ability to either be fascist or non-aligned in ideology, depending on the leader of the nation and the choices made in shaping the political landscape. And I think it goes without saying, unless Paradox has changed something, it's probably always going to be better to actually go fascist, because then you can change your war economy. You can also up your conscription, which is going to be the more important one now ever since coal's been implemented actually. So obviously going to war economy, not that important anymore. Yeah, but being able to freely up your manpower but also have the epic wholesome monarchy path, I mean, that's probably going to win a lot of people over, right? It does say the path takes a more pro-rural economical approach compared to the historic one, as well as a much more of a supremacy of will. So I'm assuming you will get yourself some insane buffs for your infantry, which you can already see right there: division attack, division defense, and division recovery rate. Not too sure if it goes further than that. I'm imagining it hopefully does, because that's just the same damn one from vanilla for the most part. Now, as for the economy stuff they show here, it's a few building slots in the more rural parts of Japan, a bit of civ speed and mill factory speed, nothing too crazy, at least not that I can see. The path ultimately culminates in the propagandization of the Japanese mythological founding tales. That's just what are you smoking, Paradox? You know what? I'm never handing you the booth again. The rapid indoctrination for a final war that will engulf the globe. Japan will march out of conquest to unify the 8 corners of the world and attempt to seize its place at the top. What are you smoking? We do have a few more focuses here, though. We got the Jewel Spear has struck, unlocks decisions to claim Asian states and gain war goals against their owners. We can target a country to claim at a time, upon which we need to occupy all existing claimed states to claim more. Very interesting. I don't know if that would lead to a peace conference or not, or it means you can just kind of bounce between different countries invading them. I mean, either way, I guess it doesn't matter if it doesn't result in a peace, because then you can just hit the justify war goal button. What's the point? Yeah. Now, it doesn't say too much in the democracy path form. The forming that I could see. I'm trying to look if there's anything I missed. A lot of it is just actually just securing the nation and becoming democratic, believe it or not. I think the funniest part of the Japan democratic tree is you just still end up fighting China. I'm gonna be real with you. That's all that happens. You also get the free colonized Asian countries on the decision to demand overlordship of Asian nations that are subject of non-Asian nations. I like the sound of that. I think it's kind of in the democratic tree already for Japan in a way where you can demand overlordship of British colonies and stuff like that. So that could be cool, unless the AI, of course, just says no, which possibly they might do that. But the unthinkable option as well, there's not too much in there I'm imagining for us to really look at. Is it going to be exactly what you think it'll be for a Japanese communist branch of a tree? The most interesting thing I can think I've already covered was just the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics of Asia. I think that sounds pretty cool, but obviously we'll have to wait and see if the unthinkable option is still unthinkably bad. But yeah, I think that's all we've got to really cover today. At least probably the last dev diary we're going to look at. I'm definitely very hyped for this DLC regardless, even if it is just sounding, a little bit off the deep end in a lot of ways. I do love in their YouTube video actually just showing off this dev diary for the most part, just reading what I've read. And I just love that you go to the communist path. That looks a bit more like the historical path to me. I would just conquer all of China. Yeah, I think Paradox is always just going to struggle with communist paths in this game for all eternity. It's just a curse upon them. I'm assuming deep down at heart, they have no idea what they're doing. But at the same time, it looks like it'll probably end up playing fun at least. I mean, as much fun as you can have in Hoi 4 if you're just into conquering a map painting. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the little look at the dev diary. Sorry I've been away. I've been, I'm back to catching up now. We'll do other things than dev diaries though, because we've done a lot of those. We'll do a few other little meme videos here and there. But if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe down below and let me know what you think of this DLC.